Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with a mix of r/neighbors from hell and r/JustNoHOA. But before we start, I would just like to say happy birthday to Karen Carter, who is one of the absolute OGs in my community and has been watching me for almost 2 years if I remember correctly. Thank you so much for your amazing support, and now let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, All I Wanted Was to Wash My Clothes. This happened about 6 years ago. I was living in an efficiency apartment by myself for the first time. I was approximately 20 years old and I was working 2 server jobs, both of which required a clean and presentable uniform. Every 3 days or so I would have to do a load of work clothes and I didn't have much time to do it between jobs. The apartment complex that I lived in had 16 apartments in it and we all shared a washer and dryer. I had the cycle time to the minute and I would go to my apartment to watch a TV show or clean or something and would change my clothes from the washer to the dryer without wasting any time. I was considerate. After I had been living there for 3 months or so, this lady moves in and starts doing her laundry in the washer and dryer, but she had the habit of leaving it in for hours, sometimes all night. I would go do my laundry and see that her clothes were in the washer, go back to my apartment and wait for about 30 minutes or so, go back and they would still be there. I would set an alarm for balls early in the morning to do my laundry before work and her clothes would still be in there. After this happened 3 times or so and my uniforms were pretty dirty, I would take her clothes out of the washer and set them on top of the dryer so that I could wash my clothes. I did this a few times and then she wrote a note that said something along the lines of, "If you touch my clothes again, I will call the police," or something. Whatever, I wrote a note back saying that she's not the only one that has to use the laundry. She seemed to get the message for a little bit. Maybe I just wasn't doing my laundry at the same time as her, but one night I was doing laundry at midnight after I had gotten off of work and my clothes were in the dryer. I set an alarm that would go off in 45 minutes, which is about how long the dryer in the complex takes. Before the alarm goes off, she shows up at my door with my uniform shirts neatly folded and a crap-eating grin on her face, and she says, "You left these over there. I figured I would fold them and bring them to you." The shirts were not even dry. She pulled them out before they were done. I was really wanting to get my laundry done fast so I could go to bed. I just said thanks and slammed the door in her face. The next time I went to do my laundry, of course, hers was in there. I did my normal thing of going back to my apartment and waiting for 30 minutes or so and then going back over there to check if she had moved her clothes. To be fair, I did this for 3 hours. After 3 hours, I took a gallon of bleach and poured it all over her clothes in the washer. I don't know what got into me. I was just feeling some rage from her writing a nasty note and taking my clothes out of the dryer, folding them and giving them to me while they were wet. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, I saw her pulling her bleach-stained clothes out of the dryer. For some reason, she did not suspect me because she was fighting with her next door neighbor as well. Go figure. She moved out soon after. And the next one is a neighbor story from r/AskReddit. The people living across the street from me when I lived in Colorado were the neighbors from hell. They owned 8 vehicles and didn't have any room to park any of them in their garage. They parked most of them on the street, taking up parking spaces for half the block. Their daughter, in her 20s, always parked her Jeep directly in front of my house. It annoyed me that she parked there all the time, but I never complained because it didn't really hurt anything and I was trying to be a decent neighbor. Things went wrong when my dad called and said he wanted to visit me for a few days. He was 71 years old at the time and had Parkinson's disease, which made it difficult for him to walk. I walked across the street and knocked on the door to be greeted by the matriarch of the family. I was polite and explained that my dad had limited mobility and would be visiting the next Friday through Monday. I pointed at her daughter's Jeep that was blocking the sidewalk leading to my front door. I remained courteous and asked if her daughter could park her vehicle elsewhere during that period of time. She became noticeably agitated and told me that was her daughter's parking spot. I explained to her that it was directly in front of my house, blocking my sidewalk, and that it was undeniably my parking spot according to the HOA rules. She told me that I should have my dad park in my driveway. I pointed out that my driveway was very steep and that my dad would be unable to safely enter or exit his vehicle there. She then pointed to a parking spot that was about 50 yards down the street and told me that I would have to tell my dad that he had to park there. I absolutely lost it and started ripping her a new one, calling her trashy, a good-for-nothing, worthless a-hole. Finally, her husband screamed from somewhere inside their house that she just needed to tell your damn daughter to park somewhere else for 3 days. And yeah guys, that just shows even if one of the partners is a complete douchebag and maybe even a Karen, side note, obviously not the wonderful Karens in our community, it doesn't necessarily mean that the other partner is not a wonderful human being, potentially like the husband in this story. And guys, if you have watched until here and still enjoy the neighbor stories, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is a rare HOA revenge story. It is titled, I kicked out the entire HOA board after they insulted my mother and grandmother and made racist comments. I used to live in a 2-story townhouse in Vancouver around 2010 with my parents. Keep in mind that this is in Canada, where HOAs are not as common as the United States and are not seen as evil. But this HOA was different. First, the characters. My mother was a 50-year-old woman working at a grocery store, and as we were Muslims, she wore a headscarf. And by the way guys, I suspect that OP uses the simple past incorrectly here, because obviously they are still Muslims. Anyway, she was a very nice woman to everyone she met, including people she knew hated her for whatever. Kill them with kindness, right? I was in engineering school and about to graduate in a few months. My father was a regular working man. He is not important in this HOA story. What the problem was, these HOA douchebags were a group of bored, possibly retired / stay-at-home moms and dads. They made BS rules like all floor mats must be straight and inspection of your suite will be done bi-monthly. And the worst, which was no overnight or late night guests. Anyway, we owned our residence and here these douchebags were trying to ruin it, making it seem as if we are tenants. My family wanted to bring my grandmother to Canada and the visa just made it through. We were excited to have her, so we go to the airport and come back with her, meeting the HOA assheads on the way back. She asked us straight, "Who is this and why does she have bags?" What the hell? I said she will be staying for a month and it is my grandma. The hippo eyes locked onto my gran and said, "You cannot be here." Since she didn't speak English, my grandmother looked in confusion. In the end though, my mom and I had a large conversation with this POS and she agreed to give us one last warning. Whatever. The next day at 11 freaking PM, the a-hole knocks. What is wrong? "I'm going to let you know that I will have to issue you guys fines if I cannot see your mother's back on the security cameras. She is not allowed to wear a headscarf on the streets inside our HOA community. Her face was visible, but I need a proper view in case we get burglars." What the hell? It was late so I didn't argue, so I went back without telling my mother. The next day, she does the same ordeal but with my mom. She was furious and she told her to leave and not be racist. The HOA POS yelled and called my mom a terrorist and left. I will never forget that night. My mother wept like a baby for the night and it was the worst night of my life, second to only when she passed away last year. I could not see this BS continue. I did what I thought would be best. I went around and took questions from every single house and asked about this HOA Karen. They all said the same thing, and on my way home I noticed a damn fine being written on our door for failing to keep our floor mats straight. It's a damn circle. How are we supposed to make it straight? At any rate, I spent some time on Reddit asking legal advisors from Canada on what can be done. They all recommended I get a form of proxy for all residents that will let me vote for them just via myself. I got around 50 people out of 60 to sign and boy was I ready. The The next election, I voted every single one of those HOA douchebags out and made my mother the head of the association. I got the position of vice president and removed all the rules. The next day I made the rules for our new HOA, and all it said was literally this: this HOA exists only to make sure no other HOA can take its place. There are absolutely no enforced rules here besides keeping your portion of the hallway clean and no interfering with other members' residences. And that, my friends, is how I made the old HOA extinct. The crappy people became really friendly afterwards. And guys, I forgot the exact phrase, but usually you would say people are a product of their environment or something. So I suppose not all HOA busybodies are actually bad people. In the case of this story, apparently they became at least bearable and friendly after the HOA was effectively shut down. And the next one is not really about neighbors, but instead about co-workers, so please consider it as a nice little bonus story, and it is titled "Fire Me for Protecting My Co-workers, Feel the Burn in Return." So this story is a few years old now, from my first year of varsity. I had started varsity and was doing a pretty hectic course in the medical field. As a child to a single parent who had not worked since I was 15, I obviously needed a job to cover my living expenses and what little my scholarship didn't. So I started working part-time at a bookstore in my local mall, as it suited my personality and I love books in general. The bookstore is one of those large-scale corporate chain types. The pay was as close to minimum wage as humanly possible though. So 6 months in, I am doing well and I get promoted to night manager. Duties involved managing the night staff, most of which are students like myself, and then 2 late 20s girls, both of which already have kids. A week into me being the night manager, a directive comes from the head office saying that we are not making enough book sales and that we are obviously not trying. Now, to put it in perspective, this is around the time where Kindles and all other types of e-readers were becoming popular, so naturally physical book sales had dropped radically. To remedy this fact, they were sending down a new store manager to take over, and our current store manager would take a minor managerial role. 3 days later, in walks the new manager from hell, henceforth be known as BB. Needless to say, I walk through to the back for our daily shift change meeting, where they introduce her. She greets us all and then asks all the managers to stay behind, so everyone filters out, leaving the 4 managers, myself as the night manager, the day manager, the stock manager and our previous store manager. So next thing, BB turns to me and asks me what the hell am I still doing here. I calmly explain that I'm the night manager. She hears this and looks at everyone else to confirm this. Once they confirm the truth of my words, she looks at me directly and gives us the whole throwdown of how things around here are going to change, blah blah blah. 6 months down the line, nothing much has changed. BB has been nothing but passive aggressive to me and some others, and everyone has noticed, to the point where everyone in our store has a burning dislike for her. The managers get called in for a meeting where we get told the store is going to be closing in a week for 2 months for a revamp. I immediately ask why the short notice. The night staff all earn on a shift-to-shift basis. A week's notice is not enough time to make alternative arrangements. BB flips out at me, saying they don't matter and are easily replaceable. I point out that 2 of them rely on this job to feed their families and they cannot live without this job. All the other managers stand with me on this point. BB then falls back and says we will pay them a base wage for 1 month and then hire them as painters. Now, my neighbor is a painter by trade and I know they earn at least twice what we are paid per hour, so I point this out as well as ask if she's also going to pay them to be trained. She then flips out at me further for being a smart aleck. Okay, maybe I deserve that. Eventually she says that we will meet tomorrow to discuss her final decision. The time that she chooses though is an hour and a half before my shift starts and right in the time frame where I have one of my final exams. I point this out and an evil grin crosses BB's face as she says to me, if you don't make it in tomorrow, don't bother coming in ever again. A week later, I find out 3 of my co-workers on night shift were let go with no pay and told to reapply once the store opens. All those who had openly been friendly with me were told not to come back, and this included both young mothers. This sends me into a fit of absolute rage. It is one thing to screw with me, but to mess with my co-workers as well, that is too far. I immediately phoned head office to complain and was completely ignored. Kept on the line, switched from department to department. Eventually I had enough and sent in a detailed report to my country's Business Control Council, reporting the corporation rather than the store for bad business practice and unfair dismissal of multiple staff members. I then emailed the corporation's HR explaining what I had done and why, and I informed them that I would change my complaint to the name of the store manager instead of the corporation in general if they found a way to rectify what they had done. It took 3 days before I received a response. They rented a smaller store for everyone to work at while the renovations were done at great expense due to the small timing window, and they had rehired everyone while suspending BB without pay until further notice. I immediately kept my promise and edited my complaint. Investigation was done and BB lost her job permanently with no chance of a reference. Had worked for said company for 20 years, by the way. With a 20-year gap in her CV, it has been very hard for her to find a decent job again. I saw her the other day working as a packer in my local supermarket, and I realized I had forgotten to get sweet chili sauce and asked her please to get me a bottle off the shelf. Couldn't think of anything better to do as I had the flu and really wasn't my sharpest, just wanted to get back into bed. She went off scowling, but can't guarantee she recognized me. This is what brought the story to my mind. And yeah guys, this story reminded me that we haven't had any good revenge stories about awful bosses or managers in quite a while. So I would like to know from you, do you also enjoy stories about crazy bosses or managers from hell? Please let me know in the comments. As usual, your feedback is very much appreciated. And the next one is titled, Childish Neighbor Loses Her Entitled Mind. For background, my cul-de-sac has a group chat mostly run by EB. And EB in this case stands for Entitled BITCH Neighbor. I used to try to get along with her, but after the events of my last post and the snow settling in my area, I have taken a step back from the women on my street. Even so, EB rubs me the wrong way every time she opens her mouth. Over the last few weeks, there's been a few incidents. One neighbor baked cookies for everyone. EB messaged the group chat, next time make them softer. I responded, I'm sure they were delicious, wish I was home to try them. Her Halloween decorations are incredibly loud and screechy, they run very late into the night and my husband gets up for work at 4, so I messaged the group chat, hey EB, your decorations look awesome, but they are pretty loud. Any way you could turn them down or shut them off before you go to bed? Her response, no, they're on a timer and I like them. My Christmas ones are louder. I did not respond, but I was pretty pissed. We have another neighbor, G, going through a messy divorce. His ex has been erratic and unstable, breaking and entering, driving drunk, attempted kidnapping of their children, and heavy drug use. EB's favorite topic of gossip is this woman, and it hurts G. Every time his ex gets brought up, he is asked for privacy a couple times, but regardless, EB always mentions her, and today I had enough. G and another neighbor were meeting up for school pickup and talking about it on the group chat when EB pops up. Good thing you're there, because your crazy wife is in the doctor's office. Wonder what drugs she's looking for. EB's daughter piped up. What? What a stupid woman! The drama! Her daughter is 22 and lives somewhere else, don't know why she's in the group chat. So I said, so she exists outside our neighborhood, who cares? EB's daughter says, what the F, EB? There's no need to be rude. Me, not trying to be rude, I guess I'm just tired of the gossip. Then leave the group. What a great suggestion, and I left the group. A little while later, I am sitting outside smoking when G comes over and asks what happened and why I left the group. I told him I was tired of his personal life being used for EB's entertainment, that I was sorry I spoke on his behalf, but that I felt he was entitled to the privacy he had been asking for and that it was not EB's place to keep gossiping about him. He thanked me for saying something. He sat and had a smoke with me while we laughed about how rude EB had been about the decorations. EB throws herself outside, immediately pointing her fingers at us, screaming that I am a bitch and I am a rude, negligent mother, etc. G got up and walked over, trying to calm her down, and I said calmly that I was in no way trying to start a fight, that I wasn't mad, and we could both just agree to not be friends. G, stop acting like you're better than all of us. Why are you screaming? We haven't done anything. EB still pointing at me.
I am better than her. I'm effing better than her.
She finally looks at me and starts screaming that I leave my children alone and do drugs and I'm a horrible mom. I just laughed. I've never left my kids alone. I sometimes sit and smoke with my other neighbor, but my children are always safe and asleep and I always have my baby monitor. I am literally outside next door. I smoke weed, but I have a prescription. I don't do it when my kids are up and it is legal here. I stood up and shouted, "Get off your broomstick! Have a great day, EB!" Then waved and went in my house. I could hear her and G shouting at each other about me for a few minutes, EB flapping her arms up and down, jumping up and down and stomping her feet. G got emotional and went inside. Then EB came back out with a pair of scissors and cut apart a motion sensor ghost decoration I had lent her for a Halloween tree she had set up. It was a $40 decoration that I put up for the kids to enjoy and she cut it to pieces. I haven't said anything further, but I cannot believe her. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. However, this is not the end of ripe content for you. I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will hopefully soon show up on the left corner of the screen, which will provide you with hundreds, if not thousands of hours of ripe content. If you still haven't gotten enough, then please also check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos that you will only find on there. Furthermore, if you want to share your own story with our community, then please head on over to r/ripestories on Reddit, where you can share your own stories and there is a good chance that I might read it in a video. Thank you so much for your daily support and I hope to see you again tomorrow.